Sometimes it's good to showcase a build sometimes, even if it's not the best feeling build ever, as what I feel is bad can be amazing for someone else who just wanted to have some fun on a Saturday night, and that's what this guide is. Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic we will go over Bleed Multistrike Smite Forge Strike Aurelis Forge Guard, an attempt at making the fancy electric sword to feel good in decent corruption. If you've been enjoying the constant flow of Last Epoch content, I'd suggest leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way to support me. So, Multistrike was released when the Sentinel rework arrived to very lukewarm reception. It has problems that haven't been really addressed yet, mainly clunky animations that makes clearing monos an absolute chore. Any skill where you need to stand still for an extended amount of time is a death sentence in Last Epoch, due to all of the ground AoEs that permeate throughout the entire game. This doesn't mean we can't build around Multistrike, but it's way more difficult than, let's say, Hammer Throw, which is a build this build will get compared to due to the nature of the Smite procs. Aurelis is a one-handed unique sword that allows your multi-strike hits to cast a smite on a target, allowing you to deal single target damage with an otherwise impossible multi-smite setup. But it only counts rares and uniques, causing us to have a very low kill time for Profane Fleshes, Imperial Watchers and Spires, and many more mobs because they are classified as normal mobs, even though they are much tankier than rare mobs by significant degrees. This leads us to Forge Guard. We are using Forge Strike as a damage supplement. We are running a large global bleed chance package with Flair's Pride, as if we can just do bleed damage with all of our hits, we don't have to worry about matching all of our damage sources together. We just need to care about how many hits we are doing. Forge Strike can be specialized to apply a large number of heavy bleeds, and this is on a 2-second cooldown. We have enough attack speed where you can actually cast Forge Strike very quickly, so being able to weave it between multi-strike attacks is pretty easy. This lets us have damage when we're fighting things that are thick normal mobs like Profane Fleshes and Spires, meaning this build doesn't instantly brick when we see one. Our smite does all of our work for clear. We have 3 smites going down against nearby enemies every time we attack with multi-strike, which all 3 of those proc 4 lightning bolts, meaning we hit the pack 3 to 4 times every time we attack with multi-strike, allowing us to clear packs with relative ease. Also as well, we also get a smite on kill as well with our swords, so we end up getting 6 overall after, of course, we kill them. And it counts the dot killing as well, much like Rip Blood, where if we kill an enemy with the dot, it proliferates even if it was killed by a dot because it was applied by Smite, which is really cool. The problem is, since we're a damage over time build, it takes time to kill things, and that's time for them to kill us. And we're playing multi-strike, which means we're standing still. So that's why this build needs to have as much chonk as possible. Thankfully, ForgeGuard has some options. We built into a small investment into block, thanks to our Flair's Pride, and we build into a lot of armor, thanks to the fact that we're a ForgeGuard. We had to invest into the 30% less damage taken over time in the ForgeGuard tree due to the fact that block and armor does not mitigate damage over time sources, meaning we absolutely become squishy whenever we get hit by a dot. But thankfully, thanks to this 30% DR that works no matter how many poison stacks that are on you, it helps a lot. In the end, do I recommend this build? Technically no, but that doesn't mean I didn't have fun trying to make it work. The build was an overall map performance, but sometimes it's all you need. With all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build. So this is the multi-strike, Forge Guard. So the usual skill rotation is of course get our sigils up, and then now we can just attack the target. Obviously, here you're not going to see very good DPS because we don't have the smites going off. But as you can tell, we get the forge strike every 2 seconds, which is pretty neat. Of course, the reversal 60k, that is absolutely terrible. But it's not taking into account a few things, mainly the axe thrower procs from this node, so that we can apply our fizz shred stacks because we're a bleed build. And then, of course, it's not applying the smites that we would be attacking with on a single target, thanks to Aurelis. And our smites hit really hard. So that's the main problem is you can't see it on the dummy. But that's a skill rotation. There's not really much to be said. You just stand, use your smite until things die. That's pretty much it. So for the skills themselves, Forge, we'll talk with multi-strike, multi-smite first. So we take 1 point travel away of the sword, 2 points travel into guarding stance. Although the armor per stack is pretty nice, this gives us about 180 flat armor and 180 flat block effect, which of course is very nice. Then 1 point travel into flanking strikes. This makes it so whenever we have one sword, whenever we have no swords, we attack always like as if we have one sword, meaning that even if we don't have any swords, we're still technically hitting with smite. Then 1 point into Hallowed Arsenal here. Each additional sword is replaced with Smite. This makes it so the 3 swords we get from the armament stacks, thanks to Perfect Steel and stuff, it means that they all get turned into Smites. Now, we take 2 points into Relentless Advance because we like attack speed. Attack speed is very good for this build. Then 4 points into Determination. The multiplicative damage modifier does not apply to the smites themselves. It just applies to the multi-strike hit itself because we're trying to apply bleeds as fast as possible. So not only are we dealing damage with the multi-strikes, but we're also dealing damage with, of course, the forge strike and, of course, the smite. So we're trying to make all of them deal damage. And thankfully, this is multiplicative damage. Then 3 points in the sweeping blows. This makes it so smites can attack farther away from us than normal, which is really nice. I've played around with 4 nodes into this and 3 nodes into this. I think both are fine. Having the extra range is pretty nice though. Then 1 point into victory strike. So if a sword kills an enemy, it will create another sword to strike another enemy, and that sword cannot trigger more swords. This applies to the smites. So if I walk into a pack and I use my smite and I attack and I hit 3 smites and I kill 3 things, it will cast 3 more smites on 3 nearby things. Now, uh, this applies to the dot applied by our smite. So it's pretty freaking good. Then 4 points into Initiate for 60% more damage. Then 2 points into Path of Night for 40% more damage. We're just trying to get as much multiplicative damage as possible so we can make our multi-strike actually help us do damage because we need it for stuff like profane fleshes and stuff like that. Then, of course, for smite here, we take 2 points travel into binding flash, 2 points travel into piety, 1 point into order of Lagan. It turns it to lightning. Thankfully, we're not playing ignite build, so that ignite to electrify chance doesn't work. Thank God, because otherwise this build would be bricked if it was bleed to electrify as well. 1 point into unbalanced scale so that we get a bunch of lightning bolts. This is what's giving us all of our clear. Every single smite we cast with multi smite is actually hitting 4 targets instead of just one. So we're technically could be hitting up to 12 targets per time with this. And of course, we add an extra lightning bolt because we had an extra point laying around because we had the +1 to smite thanks to our Aurelis. Then 5 points into sacrifice here for the 250% more damage. This applies to dots. This is why our dots for our smite are doing so well. Then 5 points into atonement. You need this node, otherwise you're just gonna die because all the smites are gonna cast and sacrifice your health, and you're quickly just gonna die. So it's better just to have 5 points in this and just ignore it. Then 2 points travel into Holy Wave, 1 point into Panacea, then 1 point into Desperate Measures. So unlike the Hammer Throw proc, the smite proc from multi-strike is applied to your mana cost, meaning that 8 mana is consumed every single time we attack with smite. And we cast a lot of smites, meaning that we run out of mana very quickly. Of course, we have our multi-strike giving us mana back, which is enough to maintain our mana, but we go into negative mana all the time with this build. So thankfully, we have Desperate Measures, which makes it so the out of mana cost of Smite is 0. So whenever we're out of mana, it costs 0 to cast our Smite. And this is very good for us because it means we never have to worry about our mana ever. And it helps significantly because we can just go to negative mana, but we can still attack with multi-strike because multi-strike is 0 mana too. So we can clear without having to worry about our mana. And we don't really care about our mana with this build. And that's pretty much it for the smite setup here. And sigils, stereotypical sigil setup, we're going for block instead of more damage because we like the block, because we need as much as possible to make up for the fact that we're using a Flayer's Pride, which is not the best shield ever, obviously. Then reversal, stereotypical dot reversal setup with the time rifts and the Harbinger of Dust. Of course, the attack speed, not really much different here. This gives us all of our single target damage, obviously. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Now for the passives here. So we take 8 points, of course, into this for HP, 5 points into the block and block effectiveness. We have to fill these nodes out because we need block effectiveness to actually feel good. Otherwise, we have no block effect, which sucks. So we definitely need that. Definitely need all the block effect we can get to make up for the fact that we're playing a bad, pretty much a bad shield. 5 points to armor clad for DR against nearby enemies. 5 points in the time of faith. This is what's giving us mana back whenever we use multi strike. 2 points travel into axe thrower. This is important later. Then 5 points into blade master for the increased attack speed. So we attack much faster. We want to attack as fast as possible to deal as many bleeds as possible. Then 10 points in Abyssal Endurance to unlock Volatile Reversal and also help us cap our resistances. Then for Paladin here, we take so I'm taking a few points to cap my resistances a little bit with Defiance, but if you have better gear, you wouldn't need this. Then 1 point into Honor. This node, obviously you want 5 out of 5 once you cap your resistances with Defiance. Then 7 out of 10 for Valor, because you want as much flat HP as possible to make yourselves feel as tanky as possible. Then 7 points into Blinding Light. I don't have much endurance on my gear because my gear is pretty trash, so having some extra endurance is nice. Then, of course, 5 points into Holy Symbol to help us cap our necrotic resistance. You wouldn't technically need this if you have better gear. Then, of course, so we can unlock sigils as well. Then for Forge Guard, we take 4 points travel into Weapons Master. The strength does give us percentage armor and increased damage with our multi-strike and Forge Strike. Then 5 points into Steel Aegis for the block effectiveness. 1 point travel into Peltist. 4 points into Shield Breaker for a lot of Fizz Shred. Of course, this is what's giving us all of our Fizz Shred, because if you don't know, we don't want to actually be running Fizz Shred with our Blessing here. We want to be running block effectiveness to make up for the fact that we have such shit block effectiveness. That would help the build significantly. So we don't want to run Fizz Shred there. So that's why we're running Fizz Shred here for a single target. Then 1 point travel to Guardian, 10 points into Smelter's Might for that global bleed chance. We want as much global bleed chance as possible because it applies to all of our hits. Too bad we're not playing a two-handed weapon, otherwise it'd be 140%. 1 point to Iron Reflex is why we're doing that, is because we're running a Wing Guards, and it gives us a bunch of flat armor because of that, thanks to the dodge to armor conversion, so it's definitely worth this point. 6 points into Might for the increased health and the strength, armor, and HP, all we need. 5 points in Infinite Bulwark for the armor on potion use, so we can actually get to a decent amount of armor, 62% to be exact, without anything else, which is pretty nice, to be honest. Then, of course, 5 points in the liquid iron. It makes it so that whenever we've used a potion, we take 30% less damage over time. The reason why this is better than poison res is because this applies to everything, right? This applies to poisons, and it's not mitigated by poison shred, the poison supply. This applies to every single dot as well. So having this is pretty nice. And of course, 5 points into Flawless Defender for the block chance and a butt ton of armor while wielding a shield, which is kind of what we need to make this build feel good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. One thing I would do, I made a mistake. Find nodes to put in Rallying Block. Probably mess around with the tree a little bit. I would probably put in nodes in Rallying Block because having all this extra armor up to 10 stacks would be nice. Because we want as much flat armor as possible so we can face tank things. Because we obviously can't move around when we use multi-strike like this. So we need to make sure that we can tank everything that comes our way. And that's pretty much it for the passives. Now for the gearing here, my gear actually isn't that good this time around. It's pretty trash. So my helmet here, Fizz bleed duration, bleed effect, and we want endurance, HP. Our bleeding heart, I have 3 LP bleeding heart, Fizz dot, dot, and then of course resistance. Bleeding heart, you'd want one anyways, doesn't matter if it's legendary or not, because having all of that extra leech is insane for us because that helps us sustain when we're, being hit by literally everything on the screen. Then Aurelis here, I did not hit attack speed. You want attack speed and then bleed chance. Those are the most important ones. So of course, damage over time is pretty nice, but attack speed, bleed chance are your preferred prefixes. If you can get an Aurelis with attack speed, oh my god, it makes the build feel so much better. And of course, the chest here, I went for as much HP as possible with some bleed effect. You could also go for bleed duration or vitality, whatever you can manage. Obviously, it's on a poor base. We'd rather have the crit avoid base so I can cap out my crit avoid, which I'm not. So all that footage you see, I'm getting crit a few times and I'm still tanking it. Flayer's Pride. This drops from, where is it? Uh, Follow the Outcast, empowered Follow the Outcast from the Abomination. This could be really strong if you get like block chance on it. That would fix all of the build's problems instantly because you would have a lot more block chance than you have now. Of course, the global bleed chance is insane. Makes it so you don't have to dual wield for that global bleed chance as well. And of course, the bleed effect is also ridiculous because having all that HP is nice. I mean, having all that extra more damage is nice. Rings, damage, resistance, although damage, strength, I think, because you want armor scaling, and of course, resistance, endurance, the usual fanfare. Same thing for the other ring. You want block chance as well, because having as much block chance as possible makes this build feel way tankier than normal. And of course, mana regen. You don't want mana regen. You want fizz damage over time. Cleanse. You definitely want cleanse because you're standing still in the middle of a bunch of Chapter 9 mobs. So you definitely want to be able to cleanse those dots on you. Otherwise, you're gonna die. And of course, HP. Wing guards, best in slot. We want as much attack speed as possible. Makes up for the fact that we have no attack speed on Aurelis. Makes up for the fact that we're not dual wielding with Aurelis. So that helps a lot. And of course, HP, crit avoid, whatever you can get on your boots, movement speed. There's not that many unique boots you want, so you probably want a sealed pair of boots with like HP, and like something else like crit avoid or something. And of course, Valdir's Chalice. I don't have an LP Valdir's Chalice. I've never dropped one yet. So, but that 20 health gained on kill per stack of bleed on the target. That's why we feel so tanky with this build, because whenever anything dies, we go back up to full health, which is really cool for the build overall. Of course, the bleed duration is essential, and of course, the global bleed chance is also essential because, as you can tell, we have very low global bleed chance. That's just due to the fact that we're a Forge Guard, and we just can't really get that much. Now, one thing to note, I do not have global bleed chance from Reign of Dragons. If you had global bleed chance from Reign of Dragons, this build would feel significantly better. Not having this sucks. Obviously, you want endurance from Spirits of Fire. From Age of Winter, you want block effect, so your your block effect is pretty good. And of course, here you probably want HP. Here you just want resistance from ending the storm. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build this time around. Sadly, it's not like anything to write home about. It's not like a good build or anything. It's just more of an example of how to fix a bad build. Because people have been asking them, "Hey Dread, how do you fix bad builds?" This is it. This is how you fix bad build. You make up for the mistakes, make up for like all the problems that a weapon like this kind of showcase, like lack of attack speed, stuff like that with wing guards, like the tankiness because we have to stand still. There's a lot of stuff to still be done with this character, and I plan on playing it for a bit longer. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you're at, and bye.